A werewolf shifter romance written by Nini Peters. Prologue. The night it happened, the moon hung low like a silent witness. Not full, not new. Just enough light to see the blood. Stephen was 5. He remembered the scream before he remembered the face. His mother's voice had always been soft, until that night. Until the doors crashed open and her lullabies were drowned out by snarls and steel. He had been dreaming of running with the other pups in the field when the scent of smoke and fear snapped him awake. He tried to be brave. He crawled out of bed, clutching his toy wolf, and followed the sound of his mother's voice down the hallway. What he saw would become the shadow that haunted him for the next 20 years. Blood on the walls. Claws where there should have been hands. Eyes he didn't recognize. And one man standing above it all. Calm, composed, deadly. His name was Juan, but Stephen wouldn't know that for years. That night, he was just the stranger who reached for him with a lie in his smile and a promise in his tone. "We're taking you somewhere safe, little one. Somewhere better." He didn't have time to run. Didn't have time to scream. One blow to the head. Darkness. And then nothing. He grew up believing that family was a privilege for the lucky. That strength came from silence, not connection. That love made you weak. He believed lies because they were the only truths he'd ever been given. Until the day he looked into violet eyes and everything inside him cracked. Until her touch made his wolf tremble. Until the memories he buried began to rise from the grave. He didn't know he had dug for himself. This is not a story about a lost boy finding his way home. This is the story of a stolen heir, a fractured identity, and a bond strong enough to defy two warring worlds. This is the story of Stephen Shadowmoon. The forest felt wrong that night. Before we continue the story, kindly like and subscribe if you haven't, because your engagement encourages us to keep bringing these beautiful stories to your screen. Thank you. Chapter 1. Stephen raised a clenched fist, signaling his patrol team to stop. They obeyed without question, their movements silent and swift. Jason came up beside him, eyes scanning the dense, wet underbrush. "I smell them," Jason muttered. "Shadowmoon." Stephen didn't reply. He already knew. The border between Bloodstone and Shadowmoon territory was dangerous enough on a good day. Tonight, with the rain coming down in sheets and visibility near zero, it felt like a trap waiting to be sprung. They crept forward, muscles tensed, ears straining for the slightest shift. Then it happened. An arrow sliced through the air and lodged itself into the tree next to Stephen's head. "Ambush!" someone yelled. All hell broke loose. Growls erupted. Blades rang against each other. Blood splattered the soaked forest floor. Stephen ducked under a swipe, twisted, and slammed his dagger into the side of a Shadowmoon scout. The man dropped. Another came from the left. Stephen blocked, struck low, and rolled away from the next blow. Lightning flashed above, illuminating the chaos in brief, white bursts. Jason was locked in combat with a taller wolf near the ridge. 2 other Bloodstone warriors were pushing back toward the tree line, outnumbered. Stephen pivoted, raising his blade. And then pain exploded in his side. He staggered. The blade was silver. Just under the ribs. Not deep, but deep enough to matter. "Stephen!" Jason's voice cut through the noise. Stephen didn't answer. He pulled the blade free, blood gushing from the wound, and turned. "Retreat!" he barked. Jason hesitated. "You're bleeding. Go!" The Bloodstone patrol began to scatter. Stephen stayed behind long enough to slow the enemy, then disappeared into the trees. Every step felt heavier. His breathing turned ragged. The silver was already burning. He didn't know how far he ran before the pain won. The cabin appeared like a ghost through the trees. An old hunter's shelter, barely standing, hidden near the edge of disputed land. Stephen stumbled through the door, slammed it shut behind him, and dropped to one knee. He tore his shirt open, exposing the wound. Red, metallic edges visible, his vision blurred. He reached for his belt knife, preparing to dig the silver out, but his hand shook uncontrollably. Creak came from the door. He grabbed the hilt, forcing himself to stand. Then he heard her voice. "Drop the blade. You'll only make it worse." He turned. She stood there, water running down her cloak, eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Stephen froze. His wolf stirred violently, then stilled. For the first time in years, the beast inside him went quiet. Iris walked forward slowly, kneeling beside him. "Let me see. You're Shadowmoon," he growled. "And you're dying. Let me help." He hesitated, but his strength gave out. She caught him before he collapsed completely, easing him down onto the old wooden bench. Her fingers pressed against his skin. Cool balm. A whisper of touch. And then everything changed. An electric pull tore through him. His eyes snapped open. Hers were already wide. Violet, deep, shocked. She touched his chest again to steady him, and the bond hit them both full force. No warning. No time to prepare. Stephen gasped. Iris blinked fast, as if trying to shake it off. She leaned in closer, her hand brushing his collarbone, and stopped. "What is it?" he asked, his voice rough. Her eyes dropped to his shoulder. She pulled back the cloth of his shirt and saw the pale, crescent-shaped birthmark beneath. "No," she breathed. "It can't be." "What?" he asked sharply. She stood up abruptly, eyes wide, hand to her mouth. "You need to leave," she said. "Tell me what you saw." She backed away. "You're not who you think you are." "I don't understand." "I can't. I shouldn't even be here." She turned toward the door. Stephen stood, staggering. "You felt it too, didn't you?" She froze. "I don't know what you mean," she whispered. "Yes, you do." She didn't answer. "You saved me. You would have bled out. You touched me," he said softly. "And my wolf stopped fighting." Long pause. Then, barely audible, she said, "So did mine." And then she was gone. 3 nights passed. Stephen returned. He didn't tell anyone. Not Jason. Not one. Not the pack healer who scolded him for the cut and wrapped it too tight. He just waited for his next border patrol assignment, and left early. She was already at the cabin. He stood in the doorway, watching her prepare herbs on the table. "I didn't think you'd come back," she said, not looking at him. "I didn't think you would either." She sighed. "I shouldn't have." Stephen walked in, and Saturday. "Neither should I." They didn't speak for a while. Then Iris took his arm gently, peeling away the old bandage. The wound had sealed, but the burn lingered. "You're lucky," she murmured. "It didn't hit your lung." "Maybe that's why I keep having nightmares," he muttered. He paused. "What kind of nightmares?" "I'm 5. I'm running through a forest. It's dark. Someone's screaming my name." "What name?" "Stephen." "Stephen." Her hands stilled. "That's your name," she said quietly. "I know. But the voice sounds different. Like it's coming from somewhere familiar." She swallowed hard. "You used to be afraid of the dark. When we were kids, you made me sit outside your room until you fell asleep." His head jerked toward her. "What did you just say?" She met his gaze. "You don't remember. But I do." He stood slowly. Who are you? My name is Iris, daughter of Beta Thomas, healer of the Shadowmoon pack. And until you disappeared, you were my best friend. I disappeared. You were taken. He shook his head. No, one found me. He raised me. He stole you. 20 years ago during a raid. You were 5. No. She reached into her pouch and pulled out a faded blue cloth. The edges were frayed. In one corner, a silver moon was stitched carefully with tiny threads. He kept this, she said. Your father, Alpha Lucas. He's kept everything. Stephen took the cloth slowly. As his fingers touched it, something shattered. A woman's lullaby. The scent of wildflowers. A hand reaching for him in the night. Stephen run. His knees buckled. He gripped the table. Do you believe me now? She asked softly. He nodded. They kept meeting. Always at the same place. Always under the same silence that wasn't quite peaceful. Stephen brought her wildflowers. I don't know why I picked these, he said once. You always gave me these, she replied. When we were kids. He smiled. Guess I'm predictable. No, she said. Just remembering. He started asking questions. About the Shadowmoon pack. About Alpha Lucas. About Luna Helen. When Iris told him his mother died 2 years after his disappearance. From grief. He didn't speak for a long time. I never even knew her name, he finally said. Helen, Iris whispered. She used to sing in the mornings. Loudly. Off-key. Stephen laughed once. Then wiped his eyes. Jason noticed. You're off lately, he said. Weird. Distant. Stephen shrugged. Tired. You don't get tired. Well, now I do. Jason narrowed his eyes. Is there something you're not telling me? No, Stephen lied. But Juan wasn't buying it either. The Alpha's eyes followed him more closely now. Your focus is slipping, Juan said one night. You've been skipping training. Stephen didn't answer. Juan leaned in. I made you, boy. Don't forget that. Stephen's jaw clenched. I remember everything now. Juan tilted his head. Is that so? I know who I am. Then prove it, Juan said. On the next patrol, take a team. Find a Shadowmoon scout. Kill them. Stephen froze. If you're loyal, Juan added, you won't hesitate. That night Stephen told Iris. I need to pretend, he said. To stay close. She nodded, lips tight. Then be careful. He touched her cheek. If anything happens. It won't, she said firmly. Because I'm going to help you. The next day Juan followed. Jason too. They trailed Stephen to the cabin. And waited. When the door opened, Juan stepped in. Well, he said. Isn't this cozy? Iris jumped to her feet. Stephen moved between them instantly. Jason's face twisted in confusion. Stephen. She's not the enemy, Stephen growled. Juan raised a brow. She's a threat. And so are you. Everything you told me was a lie, Stephen said. I gave you a life. You took mine. Juan's voice dropped. Walk out of here. Right now. And this ends. Stephen didn't move. I'll kill her, Juan warned. Iris looked at Stephen. Don't, she whispered. It's not worth it. But Stephen shook his head. You are. Juan bared his teeth. Then you're making a mistake. Stephen stepped forward. I've made plenty. I won't make this one. Juan's fists clenched. Jason looked between them. What the hell is going on? Juan snapped. Enough. He turned, eyes burning. You're coming with me. Stephen nodded. Let her go. Juan gestured to Jason. Take her. Jason didn't move. Now. But Jason hesitated. Something in his eyes doubt. Stephen didn't wait to find out more. He walked past Iris slowly. As he stepped out into the rain, he heard her voice behind him. This isn't over. He looked back once. No, he said. It's just beginning. Chapter 2. Stephen didn't return to the cabin for 3 days. He couldn't. One had him under constant watch. Extra patrols, random questioning, even a surprise assignment to guard the training grounds. Jason shadowed him more than usual, eyes scanning him when he thought Stephen wasn't looking. But Stephen felt everything now. Every lie, every shift in tone, every trap being set. When he finally got a moment alone, he didn't hesitate. He slipped out before dawn, before anyone noticed, and ran. His side still ached, the scar from the silver wound stiffening when he pushed too hard. But none of that mattered. He just needed to see her. The cabin hadn't changed. Cold, quiet. He pushed the door open slowly. She was already inside. Iris didn't look up right away. She was grinding dried leaves into powder with a mortar and pestle, her fingers moving with a rhythm that made the silence bearable. "You're late," she said. Stephen exhaled. "Didn't know we had a schedule. You left me wondering. I couldn't come. He's watching." Now she looked at him. "One." Stephen nodded. "And Jason." She paused, then went back to her herbs. "He knows something's wrong." Stephen sat opposite her. "They both do. But they don't know what." "No." She handed him a small tin of paste. "Rub this on the scar. It'll help the stiffness." He looked at it but didn't move. "You came back. I told you I would. You always do." There was silence between them. Not awkward but heavy. As if words would break something delicate. Stephen broke it anyway. "I haven't slept." She raised an eyebrow. "Still having dreams?" He nodded. "They're getting worse." She closed the lid on the herb jar and sat across from him. "Tell me." He leaned forward, elbows on the table. "It's always the same. I'm running through a forest. Everything's on fire. And someone is screaming my name." "Your real name?" "Yes. Stephen." She tilted her head slightly. "You said that last time. Do you hear anything else?" He closed his eyes. "Laughter sometimes. A woman's voice. She's singing something, off-key." Iris's eyes softened. "Your mother. She's singing a lullaby." "Yes," she whispered. "She used to do that every morning. Said it made you feel safe." "I remember her arms," he said suddenly. "Not her face. Just how it felt when she held me. That warmth." Iris reached out slowly, placing her hand over his. "You weren't supposed to remember. One made sure of that. But I do." She held his hand a moment longer before pulling away. "That means your mind is healing." Stephen looked at her carefully. "You always say the right thing." "No," she said softly. "I just say the truth." Their meetings became more frequent. Stephen risked more with each one, slipping out at odd hours, lying about errands, falsifying watch reports. But the need to see her outweighed everything. In the cabin, things were simple, honest. He'd arrive, usually bruised or sore from training. She'd be waiting, sometimes crushing herbs, sometimes reading from old medical scrolls, always sitting cross-legged near the fire like it was hers to tend. "You really never forgot me?" he asked one evening. She didn't look up. "Never. But I forgot everything. You were 5. It's not your fault. I hate that I don't remember." She smiled faintly. "You remember now. That's what matters." He looked at her fingers, slim, strong, steady. Do you ever get tired of healing everyone else? All the time. Then why do it? She met his eyes. Because it's the only thing I know how to do. That's not true. No. You remind people who they really are, he said quietly. That's more than healing. She looked away, visibly shaken. The next morning, Stephen woke in his bunk drenched in sweat. Another dream. But this time it was different. He was in the sacred grove, standing barefoot beneath the ancient oak. Someone was laughing, childlike, free. He turned and saw a girl running toward him, wildflowers in her hands, then flames, and a pair of silver eyes watching it all burn. He sat up fast, gasping. He rubbed his hands through his hair, still shaken. The dream had felt real. Too real. That evening, he brought her the same wildflowers from his dream. She stared at them. Do you know what these are? No. They're moon petals. Do they mean something? You used to pick them for me when we were kids. He looked at the petals. Why those? Because you said they reminded you of my eyes. He blinked. That sounds like something I'd say. She smiled, setting them in a cup of water. You were always a flirt. Not much has changed then. That made her laugh. A real one this time. It stirred something in him. Comfort. Danger. He didn't move closer. But he didn't move away either. They sat together by the window. He asked more about the pack. What had changed, who had stayed, who had left. She told him about the wolves who still hoped for peace. About her father, Beta Thomas, who blamed himself for not protecting Lucas's son. About the warriors who trained harder every year, preparing for a war that never came but always threatened to. She showed him a sketch once, drawn by a child. It was faded and torn, but the handwriting in the corner was shaky. Me and Iris under the big tree. He touched the paper with reverence. I made this. You were 6. Or almost. Did we always play together? Every day. He looked up at her. Why didn't you forget me? She hesitated. Because I never stopped feeling like something was missing. And when I met you again and touched you, I knew. Their eyes met. And nothing else existed. Jason noticed the changes. Stephen was quieter. Not withdrawn, but somewhere else. You're distracted, Jason said one night during training. Stephen dodged the sparring blade with ease. I'm focused. Focused on something else. Stephen threw a counterstrike, knocking Jason off balance. You're imagining things. Jason stood, brushing himself off. You don't lie well. Stephen shrugged. Maybe I've just changed. Jason narrowed his eyes. Or maybe someone's changing you. Stephen didn't answer. Jason let it drop for now. One night, Stephen reached the cabin and found Iris pacing. What's wrong? He asked. I shouldn't be here. You say that every time. No, I mean it. It's getting dangerous. I know. I think your friend, Jason. He saw me leave the grove last night. Stephen swore under his breath. He didn't say anything. Doesn't mean he won't. I'll handle it. Iris walked to the table and placed a worn cloth over the herbs. Maybe it's time to stop. Stephen moved to her, voice low. Is that what you want? She looked up at him. No. Then we don't stop. She closed her eyes briefly. This bond. It's supposed to make things clearer. And it just makes everything harder. He stepped closer. Do you regret it? No, she whispered. I just wish it hadn't come with a war. They stood in silence. Then she stepped into him, and he wrapped his arms around her. It wasn't lust. It was survival. It was two broken pieces trying to hold each other steady. The next day, Jason confronted Stephen outright. "You've been lying to me." Stephen kept his voice calm. "About what? Where you go? Who you see?" Stephen didn't answer. Jason stepped closer. "Is it a Shadowmoon?" Still no reply. "Stephen, what the hell are you doing?" Stephen met his eyes. "I'm remembering." Jason blinked. "What does that mean?" "It means everything you and I believed about Bloodstone, about one. It's all a lie." Jason laughed once, bitter. "You sound like a traitor. Or someone who finally woke up." Jason shook his head. "You're going to get yourself killed." "Maybe. But I'd rather die knowing the truth than live serving a monster." Jason didn't respond. But the silence said enough. That night, Iris didn't wait inside the cabin. She was out front looking at the stars. Stephen joined her. "You okay?" he asked. "Just thinking. About how we make it out of this." "We will." "Do you really believe that?" He looked at her. "I have to." She turned to him. "If Jason finds out, really finds out, he could tell Juan." "I know. And if Juan finds out?" "He won't," Stephen said. "How can you be sure?" "Because I won't let him." She searched his face, then reached for his hand. "Promise me something. Anything. Don't leave me behind. No matter what happens." He squeezed her fingers gently. "Never." She rested her head on his shoulder. And for that one quiet moment, the world stopped spinning. And for the first time in weeks, Stephen didn't dream of screams. He dreamed of the girl with violet eyes and the boy who had once loved her under the oak tree. Chapter 3. The rain had stopped by morning, but the cold lingered. Iris wrapped her cloak tighter as she stepped into the Shadowmoon Pack's main hall. The stone building was quiet this early. Warriors still in their barracks, elders still asleep. But she had no time to wait for permission. The archives were located beneath the council wing, guarded not by warriors, but by dust, time, and silence. Generations of handwritten scrolls, aging ledgers, and relics from a peaceful past lined its walls. Most wolves didn't care for the records. They trusted instincts, memory, oral traditions. But Iris was a healer. She believed in proof. And today, she needed more than memory to confront what her heart already knew. She lit a lantern and stepped into the musty vault. Her fingers trembled slightly as she skimmed the index ledger, scanning entries for the year of the raid. 20 years ago. Shadowmoon losses. Children's birth records. Her eyes stopped on a small label written in Beta Thomas's script. Stephen S. She opened the drawer with both hands. Inside, a few fragile keepsakes lay undisturbed. A faded piece of cloth, blue, frayed at the edges, with a small silver crescent stitched into the corner. Her breath caught. She recognized it instantly. The baby blanket. There were also charcoal drawings, stick figures under trees, a scribbled wolf, and a tiny signature in the corner. Stevie. Tears stung her eyes as she pulled them out. She found a final note tucked beneath the paper. A letter from Luna Helen, dated 2 weeks before the raid. Stephen still refuses to sleep unless Iris visits in the evening. I think he's in love with her already. Iris laughed softly, though it broke something inside her. Then she remembered something else. One had once boasted, drunk, unaware she was nearby, about keeping a trophy from that night. A reminder, he had said, that even the mighty can lose their future in their sleep. A torn piece of cloth, he'd called it. The same cloth that matched the missing corner of this blanket. Her hands shook. The evidence was undeniable. Stephen Shadowmoon was alive, and he'd been right in front of them all along. By the time Iris reached the cabin, night had already fallen. She paced the floor, lighting the old lantern and pulling the dusty blanket from the bench. Her heart thudded like a warning drum in her chest. Would he believe her? Would he remember? She didn't have to wait long. Stephen arrived just before midnight, his shirt damp with sweat, eyes haunted from another sleepless night. But when he saw her expression, he stopped in the doorway. "What happened?" "I went to the archives," she said. Stephen's jaw clenched. "I told you not to." "No," she cut in. "You need to see this." She handed him the blanket first. He stared at it, confused at first, then slowly turned it over to the corner with the silver crescent. His breath hitched. "This? Your mother stitched that. You slept with it every night." He didn't move. Then she gave him the drawing, the one of 2 children beneath a tree. He took it with slow, careful fingers. His throat worked hard as he swallowed. "I made this." She nodded. "You drew it in the grove. The day you fell out of the tree and cried because you thought your wolf would never come." "I don't remember." "You were 5, she whispered. "And then? You were gone." Stephen stared at the image, the lines, the signature, like it was a foreign language trying to translate itself back into his soul. And then he crumpled into the chair. "I thought I was an orphan," he said. "One told me, rogues killed my family. That I was lucky to survive." He lied. "I believed him," Stephen said. "I trained under him. Killed for him. You were a child." "No," Stephen growled. "I became the weapon he needed." She sat beside him slowly, carefully. "He stole your life," she said. "That doesn't make you a monster." "I can't remember her face," he whispered. "You will." He looked at her. "I don't deserve to come back," he said. "Not after everything I've done. I don't even know who I am anymore." She reached out and touched his cheek. "You're Stephen. My Stephen." And that was when it happened. The first full memory surged through him like a tidal wave. He was 5 again. Sleep. The sound of shouting pulled him from his dreams. He stumbled from his bed, bare feet cold on the stone floor. His mother's voice panicked. His father's command sharp. Then the door crashed open. Men in bloodstone armor poured into the house. His mother screamed, shielding him with her body. "Take him!" someone roared. He was ripped from her arms. Sharp sting. The smell of smoke. And then the forest. Running. Crying. The sound of his name. "Stephen!" He shot back to the present with a gasp. Iris held him, arms tight around his shoulders. "You remembered," she said softly. He nodded, still shaking. "I saw her. She loved you." "I saw them take me," he said. "I saw him one. He was there. He told them to do it." "I know." Stephen stood abruptly, fists clenched. "He murdered my life. My mother. My name." "I'm so sorry," she whispered. He turned to her. "If he finds out I know, he'll kill us both." They didn't hear the footsteps until it was too late. The cabin door swung open with a loud bang. Stephen spun around. One stood there, flanked by Rocky, and behind them Jason. The silence that followed was more dangerous than the storm outside. "Well," one said, stepping inside. "That answers that." Iris rose quickly, putting herself between them. Stephen's body moved without thinking, shielding her again. Jason looked like he'd been punched. You're one of them," he said. Stephen didn't take his eyes off one. "I was always one of them." One laughed. "Touching. Truly." Rocky's face was pale. He didn't speak. One stepped further into the room. I warned you, Stephen. Told you to stay away. Told you not to dig. You kidnapped me. I saved you. You killed my mother. One's face turned hard. She was collateral. Stephen's wolf surged to the surface. His voice dropped an octave. Say that again. Or what? Un asked. You'll attack your alpha. You're not my alpha. One's face twisted. You forget yourself. I remember everything now. One's hand twitched toward his blade. Then you know how this ends. Before Stephen could move, One's knife was out, pressed lightly against Iris's throat. I knew you'd come back to her, One said. That healer's touch was too soft to resist. Let her go, Stephen growled. No, not yet. First, you tell me. How much did you tell her? Everything. One smiled coldly. Then she dies. Stephen's eyes glowed. You'll have to go through me. I plan to. Rocky stepped forward suddenly. One, stop. One turned. You forget your place. No, Rocky said. You forgot yours. One's eyes narrowed. I raised him. You used him. He was never yours. And he was never yours to destroy either, Rocky said louder now. This ends tonight. One shoved Iris forward. Stephen caught her before she fell. You think this makes us even? One sneered. You think this makes you strong? I know what makes me strong, Stephen said. Then show me. One lunged. What followed was chaos. Stephen shoved Iris toward Jason, who, to his credit, caught her and didn't resist. Get her out of here. Jason didn't argue. Not this time. Stephen turned just in time to block One's strike. Steel met steel. They fought in the tiny cabin like wolves in a cage. Clashing blades, snarling words, history bleeding out with every strike. One was stronger. But Stephen was faster. And he was angry. Every swing of his blade held a memory. His mother's voice, his father's search, Iris's touch. One struck hard, catching Stephen in the side. Stephen fell to one knee. One raised his blade. I should have killed you back then. But you didn't, Stephen growled. And with a roar, he drove upward, knocking One back, flipping him over the table. One hit the wall with a sickening crack and dropped to the ground, breathing, but not moving. Stephen staggered to his feet. Jason and Iris stood in the doorway, frozen. Rocky knelt beside One, silent. Stephen's eyes locked with Jason's. Now you know. Jason said nothing. But slowly he nodded. Then Iris crossed the room and took Stephen's hand. And for the first time in 20 years, Stephen Shadowmoon stood on his own 2 feet, with nothing left to run from. Chapter 4. Stephen woke up the next morning to find One sitting by his bed. Not pacing, not shouting, just sitting, watching. The air was thick with danger. You sleep like a pup again, One said, voice flat. Stephen sat up slowly. Didn't realize I needed permission to rest. You don't. But I expect answers when I know a man has secrets. Stephen met his gaze. I don't know what you think you saw last night. One's lip curled. I didn't see. Followed. There's a difference. Stephen swung his legs over the side of the bed. Then you know I was right. I know you've been slipping away to meet a Shadowmoon girl. She's a healer. She's a spy. No, Stephen said calmly. She's my mate. One didn't blink. Unfortunate. Stephen stood. Say what you want, but I won't deny it anymore. One folded his arms. Then prove you still serve this pack. Stephen raised a brow. How? Tomorrow night we strike a Shadowmoon outpost. You'll lead the charge. You want me to kill my own. I want you to choose who you really are. Stephen didn't flinch. Fine. I'll lead. Once stood, eyes narrowed. And you'll bring me her head. The room fell silent. Stephen didn't speak. He didn't need to. One already knew. He found Iris at the cabin that evening, waiting with her usual calm, but her eyes told a different story. You look like death, she said. Stephen didn't answer. He simply pulled her into his arms and held her there. What happened? She whispered. One wants me to lead a raid on a Shadowmoon outpost. Tomorrow. Her body tensed. You can't. I don't have a choice. If I refuse, he'll kill us both. She looked up at him. So you're going to attack your own pack? No, he said quietly. I'm going to warn them. Her brows lifted. You're going back, he said. To your father. To Lucas. He won't believe me. Show him this. Stephen pulled a worn leather strap from his pocket. A pendant hung from it. Faded but familiar. Iris's eyes widened. That's your mother's. It was in one's drawer. I took it before he could burn it. She took it gently. You remember her now? More every day. You're risking everything by giving me this. I already lost everything once. I'm not letting that happen again. He kissed her forehead. Go. Tell them. I'll stall one. She looked at him, eyes wide. What if he suspects you're warning them? Stephen forced a smile. He already does. Iris returned to Shadowmoon before sunrise. She moved like smoke through the trees, avoiding the usual paths, following the old healer's trail her mother once showed her as a child. By the time she reached the gates, the guards were already changing shifts. I need to speak to the Alpha, she said. The warrior blinked. He's not seeing anyone. She pulled the pendant from her cloak and held it out. Tell him it's about his son. Alpha Lucas stood at the edge of the grove when she found him. Weathered. Worn by grief. He didn't turn when she approached. I was told you brought something, he said. She stepped forward and held out the pendant. He took it with both hands. His eyes didn't move for a long time. Then his knees buckled and he dropped to the ground. Stephen, he whispered. Tears filled his eyes. Silent, uncontrolled. Iris knelt beside him. He's alive. Lucas looked at her, desperate. How do you know it's him? He remembers. Not everything, but enough. The mark. The dreams. His mother's voice. Lucas gripped the pendant. I've waited 20 years for this. There's more. She told him everything. Juan's deception, Stephen's double life, the upcoming raid. Lucas listened, unmoving. When she finished, he spoke quietly. How long do we have? Less than a day. Lucas stood slowly. Then we prepare. When Stephen returned to Bloodstone territory, he kept his eyes forward, his shoulders relaxed, his steps casual. Inside he was unraveling. Jason caught up with him near the sparring grounds. You look like someone threw you off a cliff, Jason said. Stephen glanced at him. How would you know what that looks like? Jason smirked. Because I've seen you fall. Stephen didn't respond. Jason sobered. What are you planning? What I have to. You're really doing it. Betraying one. Stephen looked him dead in the eyes. Do you believe in right and wrong? Jason blinked. That's not a simple question. It should be. Jason sighed. You're gonna get yourself killed. Not if I take him down first. Jason stared at him. You know I should report this. I know. But I won't. Stephen nodded once. Thank you. Jason swallowed hard. Don't make me regret it. The next night, Juan led them through the trees with a grim smile. Stephen leads, he said. He knows the terrain. The warriors followed silently, but Stephen's heart pounded with every step. He dropped small markers, scratches on trees, broken twigs. He knew the Shadowmoon scouts would see them. He was counting on it. By the time they reached the clearing, the outpost was already empty. One's eyes narrowed. Where are they? Gone, Stephen said. Must have moved. One turned slowly. Or you warned them. Stephen didn't blink. I didn't. One stepped closer. You're lying. Jason moved between them. We were all here. None of us left. One's eyes darted to Jason, then to Rocky. Take them back, he snapped. Now. Stephen exhaled slowly. That night, he sat alone in the barracks, staring at the ceiling. He had never felt more tired. Living in between was killing him. The next morning, Iris returned to Shadowmoon's main hall. Alpha Lucas stood at the table with his council. Timetables. Predictions. He risked his life for us, Iris said. And now one knows he's hiding something. Lucas nodded. We move soon. He looked at her. I want to see him. You will. Soon. She hesitated. He's still playing the part. Still pretending. Lucas clenched his jaw. And how long until that cost becomes too high? Iris didn't answer. Back in Bloodstone, Stephen was summoned again. One sat in his tent, fingers tapping the edge of a glass bottle. You disappointed me, he said. Stephen stood silently. The raid was a failure. No one died. That's the problem, one snapped. I wanted blood. Stephen didn't move. One leaned forward. You're slipping. I can feel it. I'm fine. No, one said. You're not. Then he held up a small vial. Stephen's heart froze. What's that? Wolfsbane, one said calmly. A test. Stephen's muscles tensed. You want me to drink it? No. I want you to carry it. On you. So your scent changes. So you can't be tracked by her. Stephen's throat dried. One smiled. Prove to me she means nothing. Stephen took the vial. But as he walked away, he already knew what he had to do. He met Iris that night in the cabin. The minute he stepped in, he dropped the vial on the table. I can't do this much longer, he said. Iris looked at him. Then stop. He'll kill me. Then we make the first move. Stephen sat down heavily. What's the plan? He showed him a map. Lucas's army was positioned near the northern ridge. They were ready. You just need to get him there. Stephen stared at the map. Tomorrow, he said. It ends. Chapter 5. One moved under moonlight like a shadow given form. There was no sound but the hush of leaves brushing the forest floor. The healer girl's scent lingered in the grove, faint but fresh. He followed it like a hunter. Iris never saw it coming. She was walking back from the eastern ridge, having just dropped off a bundle of herbs for the sentry post when something hard struck her from behind. Her vision blackened, and the world turned sideways. When she woke, she was tied to a tree in the middle of the grove. The sacred grove. Her wrists ached. The ropes burned. Her wolf strained beneath her skin, but wolfsbane soaked the binds. Her muscles went limp. One stood a few feet away, smiling. I needed a message delivered, he said coldly. And you're the perfect vessel. Iris's throat was dry. He won't come. Not for me. One chuckled. Oh, sweetheart. That boy would walk into fire for you. And he will. He turned toward the tree-line and raised a horn. He blew it once. A long, sharp note that echoed through both pack lands. Challenge. At Bloodstone Camp, Stephen dropped the training blade mid-swing. Jason across from him froze. That was the horn. Stephen didn't wait. He ran. He reached the edge of the grove in minutes, heart slamming against his ribs. And then he saw her, Iris, bound to the old ceremonial tree. One stood before her, arms wide. "Well," one called, "you going to keep pretending, or are you ready to face me like a real alpha?" Stephen stepped forward. "Let her go." "Not yet. You don't need her. You want me. Here I am." One's grin widened. "Then I challenge you." Silence fell like a blade. From the trees figures emerged. Bloodstone warriors. Shadowmoon scouts. Even Rocky and Jason. Lucas arrived last, stepping into the moonlight, eyes locking on Stephen's. One spoke again. "By ancient law, I challenge you for control of both packs. The fight ends in blood or surrender. Do you accept?" Stephen didn't hesitate. "I accept." "Then drink." One tossed a flask at Stephen's feet. Stephen picked it up and sniffed. "Wolfsbane." He looked at Juan. "Poisoning me. That your plan?" "It's tradition," Juan sneered. "To even the field." Stephen glanced at Iris. Then he drank. The poison burned like acid. His limbs went numb. His vision blurred. But he stayed standing. One struck first. Stephen dodged barely. His body felt 10 seconds behind every command. One's blade slashed across his shoulder. Stephen fell to one knee. Iris screamed. Lucas started forward, but Jason held him back. "He has to finish it." Stephen rose again. One laughed. "You're weak. You're afraid." One charged. Stephen met him head-on. The fight was brutal. Silver clanged against silver. Claws tore. Blood spilled. One landed another strike to Stephen's ribs. Stephen collapsed. Iris screamed again. "Stephen!" Something shifted. A growl erupted from Stephen's chest. His eyes glowed silver. The poison burned out in a single surge of power. Rose. Stronger. One faltered. "No." Stephen struck. 1, 2, 3 hits. One staggered. Dropped his blade. Stephen grabbed him by the throat. "This ends now." He slammed Juan into the ceremonial stone. Blood splattered across the grove. Silence. One didn't move. Stephen stood over him, panting, shaking. Lucas stepped forward. So did Rocky. Jason untied Iris. She ran to Stephen, catching him just as he began to fall. "You came back," she whispered. He looked at her, eyes dimming. "I never left." The grove stayed quiet for a long time. Stephen sat with Iris on a fallen log while Lucas addressed both packs. His voice, though wearied by years of grief, carried strength that silenced everyone. "Let tonight be the last night blood is spilled between us," Lucas said. "We've lost too much already. And now we have found what we thought we never would." He looked directly at Stephen. "Our son. Our alpha." Some wolves bowed their heads. Others exchanged looks of uncertainty. But none protested. Stephen rose slowly, shoulders heavy. The eyes of 2 packs burned into him. He didn't feel like an alpha. Not yet. He felt like a man crawling out of 2 decades of lies, trying to figure out how to stand in the light again. Lucas approached him. "There's still time to walk away." Stephen shook his head. "I didn't fight to walk away." Jason came next. He looked Stephen in the eye. "I hated you for this," he admitted. But I saw what one became. What he did to you. I'm sorry. Stephen placed a hand on Jason's shoulder. You followed him because you trusted him. You're not alone. Rocky came forward last. His voice was quieter than Stephen had ever heard it. I raised you. Not well, not honestly, but I did. Stephen nodded once. You did more good than you know. But now it ends here. Rocky swallowed. I'll follow you. If you'll have me. Stephen took a breath. Then we begin again. He turned to the crowd. This war ends with him. If you want peace, I'll build it. But it has to be together. One by one, heads bowed. Not to one. Not to Lucas. But to him. Later, under the stars, Stephen and Iris sat by the remains of the sacred fire. I still smell the wolfsbane, she teased. He smiled faintly. Better than smelling defeat. She rested her head on his shoulder. You were never meant to lose. Even when you did. I was supposed to lead, he murmured. And I ran for 20 years. You came back. He looked down at her. Only because you pulled me back. She looked up. Only because you let me. He leaned in, forehead touching hers. No promises. No grand speeches. Just a breath shared between two wolves who had lost everything and still found each other again. Together. Chapter 6. The scent of fresh earth lingered beneath Stephen's boots as he walked alone through the old Shadowmoon training grounds. The scars of the recent battle had been cleared, but echoes remained. Scorched bark on the ancient trees, broken spears gathered in neat piles, and the iron scent of blood, faint yet unforgettable. He paused beneath the crescent-shaped monument that marked the Alpha Line. 4 years it had stood like a gravestone, symbol of a lineage believed broken. Now it was a mirror reflecting his return. Behind him footsteps, light familiar. Iris. They're waiting for you, she said gently. Stephen exhaled, long and slow. I know. Are you ready? He turned to face her. Her violet eyes were calm, but her fingers twisted the edge of her robe. I'm terrified, he admitted. She stepped closer. Good. That means you care. He didn't answer. Just reached for her hand and squeezed it once. Then together they walked toward the council house. The two packs gathered as one. Bloodstone and Shadowmoon. Former enemies now seated side by side beneath the wooden archway draped in silver leaves. Elder Valerie stood in the center, flanked by Beta Thomas and Rocky. Lucas sat quietly on the side. His body still healing, but his gaze sharp with pride. He said nothing. This was no longer his moment. Stephen stepped into the circle. He saw faces. Joe, wary but respectful. Ivy, with a bittersweet smile. Jason, who hadn't left his side since the Grove. Even Sonia was there, standing near the back, arms folded tightly but present. Elder Valerie raised a hand. By the will of the moon and the blood of 2 lineages, we gather to anoint the new Alpha. Stephen swallowed. Before we begin, I need to speak. A murmur ran through the crowd, but silence fell again. I was raised in a lie, he said. I bled for a pack that stole me. I called the wrong man father, and I hurt people I didn't even know were my own. I don't stand here as a perfect leader. I've made mistakes, carry guilt. I still have nightmares. He looked at Iris. But I've also remembered who I am. I've learned what it means to fight for something beyond myself. And I want to build a future where no cub has to wonder where they belong. Where no family is torn in half for power. If you'll let me, I'll lead that future. Not as a perfect alpha, but as one who's walked through fire to earn it. Silence. Then Jason stepped forward, placed his fist over his chest. I follow you. Joe followed. Then Rocky. Then the rest. The ceremony began with ancient words. Vows spoken under moonlight and witnessed by ancestors. When it ended, Stephen stood taller, not because of the title, but because the weight of belonging finally settled into his bones. He turned to Iris, who had watched from the edge, her fingers now still. He walked to her. Ready to do this with me? I've been ready since the day I saw your silver eyes. Their mating ceremony was held days later, smaller but no less sacred. The sacred fire was rekindled. Two wolves stood beneath the stars, their bond humming through the pack like a heartbeat. Iris wore a silver thread around her wrist, the same thread from the blanket she'd found in the archives. Stephen had carried the torn piece from his childhood with him into every battle. Now it bound them together. As the final vows were spoken, a howl rose from the pack. Not mourning, not battle, but joy. Weeks passed. Peace was not immediate. Not everyone trusted easily. Not every wound healed clean. But bridges were built. Patrols shared. Elders began gathering in joint councils. Cubs from both sides played together at the edge of the woods. Stephen met with each bloodstone warrior, listened to their stories, acknowledged their losses. He spoke with the families of those lost in the final battle. He made no excuses, only promises. Some left, others stayed. He never forced anyone. One night, as autumn crept into the air, Stephen stood at the edge of the grove. Iris joined him, silent. She placed his hand on her stomach. Took him a moment. Then the realization sank in. Child. His knees buckled and he laughed, choked and disbelieving. We're going to be parents. She nodded, eyes wet. He pressed his forehead to hers. Then I have even more to fight for. Later that night, Stephen walked alone to the ceremonial stone where one had fallen. He knelt beside it, not to honor the man, but to remember the lesson. Power taken through blood would always breed ruin. But power given through choice, that changed everything. He stood and turned his gaze to the moon above, full and radiant. A new moon would rise soon. And with it a new generation. One that would never know the cage he'd lived in. Only freedom. Only family. Only love. Epilogue. 3 years later. The clearing buzzed with laughter, music, and the sweet scent of roasted meat. Children ran barefoot through the tall grass, streaked with berry juice and cake crumbs, howling like miniature wolves as they played tag around the ceremonial stones. Colorful garlands draped from tree to tree, each strand woven with herbs and feathers representing both old packs, no longer rivals, now family. Stephen stood by the edge of the grove, arms crossed loosely, watching with quiet pride. His eyes followed one child in particular, a boy with silver eyes. Stephen Jr., 3 years old today, and already too fast for his own good. He'd spent the entire morning running from his own birthday crown, yanking it off every time Iris tried to put it back on. He was wild, free, unafraid. Everything Stephen had never been at that age. Alpha, a voice said behind him. Stephen turned to find Jason approaching with 2 cups. He handed one over. Peaceful day, Jason said. Stephen took a sip. Didn't used to believe in those. Jason smiled. None of us did. Until you made one. Stephen shook his head. We all did. Together. Jason raised his cup. To the boy who reminds us why we fought. Stephen raised his in return. To his future. Across the clearing, Iris crouched near a table filled with gifts and treats. Stephen Jr. ran to her, giggling as she picked him up and twirled him around. The boy's laughter filled the air, light, sharp, unburdened. Valerie, now moving slower than ever, joined Stephen and Jason by the tree line. Her voice was low but firm. He has your eyes. But her heart. Stephen glanced at the two most important people in his world and nodded. He'll need both. As the sun dipped behind the trees, a group of elders lit a ceremonial lantern. It floated into the sky, followed by dozens more small lights rising into the twilight. Stephen Jr. gasped in awe. "Daddy! The stars are flying." Stephen knelt beside him. "Those are your ancestors, Bud. Watching over you." The boy looked up with wide eyes. "Even the bad ones?" Stephen chuckled. "Especially the ones who tried to change." Iris placed a hand on his back. "You should tell him." "Tell him what?" "Who he is." Stephen lifted his son gently onto his shoulders. The boy squealed in delight. "You're Stephen Shadowmoon Jr., Stephen said softly. "Son of peace. Born from two packs who were once enemies. And one day," Iris added with a smile, "you'll lead not from fear but from love." The boy didn't answer. He was too busy reaching for the floating lanterns, fingers outstretched as if trying to catch the stars themselves. And in that moment, Stephen knew the truth. The war was over. The scars were healing. And what they'd built, this messy, beautiful, unlikely union, was worth every loss. Because Stephen Jr. would never know life as a weapon. He would only know life as a legacy. Did this story touch your heart the way it touched ours? Let us know in the comments. Your favorite moment, your favorite character, or even what you'd name Stephen and Iris's next child. If you loved this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell, so you never miss our next story.